Hello friends, welcome back to Strategic Management. We have been talking about internalization of forces and utilizing internal elements for the benefit of the organization in terms of strategic choices. And we saw that there has to be a coherence between the policy and plan and how elements influence policy. We saw that in case of 3M, in terms of their human resource policy and how they, they create work time specifically for innovation. How they incorporate that into their plan, we just got a hint of that, and how it traversed into a potential of 60,000 product portfolios into different categories, equipment, medical equipment, electrical equipment, abrasives, adhesives and so on. We have seen that. Do visit their website to understand that more. Now extending our argument, extending our thought process, to understand it better, we have to go for two more aspects associated in this segment of environmental understanding and strategic choices before going for the last segment, resource capability and core competence. And there we will reach to a stage wherein we would be extending our understanding towards business level strategic choices and those kind of things in due course of time, and more of strategy implementation, formulation, implementation and monitoring. We talked about that in terms of strategic process. So we would be going for as far as choosing the points of implementation and elements of implementation in subsequent sessions, but including this one, two more we would be going for as far as understanding and formulation. So environmental analysis with respect to resource based model, and here we are going for Hitt, Ireland and Hoskisson, strategic management concepts and cases, competitiveness and globalization, and we take the clue from there. But before going ahead, we have to understand two aspects. One is average returns. I have talked about these briefly earlier as well, but here they are specifically required, so I am reiterating those. Average returns are returns equal to those an investor expects to earn from other investments with a similar amount of risk. We mentioned that when we were talking about few aspects of strategic choices in terms of as far as cost and differentiation. So investments with a similar amount of risk. Risk analysis has to be done, risk calculation has to be done, and I talked about feasibility perspective. So feasibility has to be analyzed. We have to define the feasibility, we have to determine the feasibility of whatever we are going to invest in terms of our resources, including financial resources, technological resources, human resources. Above average returns are returns in excess of what an investor expects to earn from other investments with a similar amount of risk. So keep these in mind, refer to the book, and definitely it will explain more in terms of as far as the whole situation goes. But the objective here for taking the clue of average returns and above average returns and our preceding understanding in terms of environmental forces, the objective is that we have to look at it with the perspective of currently with the perspective of resource based model of above average returns. Resource based model of above average returns, as the authors say, assumes that each organization is a collection of unique resources and capabilities. So this is the basis which we have to take while taking a strategic standpoint for formulation and identifying and formulating strategies. The uniqueness of resources and capabilities is the basis of a firm's strategy and its ability to earn above average returns. So the key word is uniqueness, uniqueness of resources. It can be human resource, it can be a patented technology which you have developed, it can be a place wherein you have found something from Mother Earth, which wherein you got the rights for mining that place and you found something which has become a resource for as far as your organization goes and production system goes. You have a supplier who is ready and keen to get associated with you in terms of as far as the situation goes. That can also be thought of as a resource, but not a very directly controllable resource and so on. And the research based model structurally proposes these aspects. We have taken the reference of the elements developed here, Hitt, Ireland and Hoskisson, 2004, Strategic Management Concepts and Cases, Competitiveness and Globalization, published by Cengage Learning. We have not copied the figure, we have just redrawn or recreated the chart which was given in the book, but this is just to facilitate the academic discussion. So First element which resource based model of above average return says is that identify the firm's resources. Now you see, when you say identify the firm's resources means you have to suggest or you have to actually acknowledge, and I have talked about this word, this term earlier as well. Acknowledge that X is my resource. So identify the firm's resources, study its strengths and weaknesses compared with those of competitors. If you are actually acknowledging your human resource as a resource at this, just for an example, then you have to look into the strengths and weaknesses. Second element is, and how does it traverses into a structure, I will be coming back to that. But second element is determine the firm's capabilities. We will be talking about resources, capabilities and core competencies in third segment from now. So determine the firm's capabilities. What do the capabilities allow the firm to do better than its competitors? Determine the potential, third point is determine the potential of the firm's resources and capabilities in terms of a competitive advantage. What comparatively you may be able to derive. Locate an attractive industry. Where would you be using these, how to associate that with industry? Now you see the role which I would be playing as far as the whole thing goes. Select a strategy that best allows the firm to utilize its resources and capabilities relative to the opportunities in the external environment. We have talked about that. And structurally, if we go into these steps and decipher these steps. So first step, wherein identification of resources is there, it can be seen with the perspective of resources inputs into firm's production process. Any input which you would be going for in the firm's production process. For example, Nike shoes, a sole which you have developed, the process associated with developing that particular kind of a sole, the understanding which you may have developed in terms of foot related movements or pressures, wherein specific points of foot giving pressure on specific points, and that is how you have crafted the structure of that sole and the shoe. The kind of understanding which you have developed in these kind of things basically converted into the production processes. Second point, firm's capabilities. So capacity of an integrated set of resources to integratively perform a task or activity. Integratively performing a task or an activity in coherence with everything which you are doing, all the functionalities in coherence. You see, capability actually demonstrates itself if it is intertwined in the complete process throughout the functionalities throughout, because every strategic step which an organization chooses to go for is associated with whole of the organization acting together, all the functions acting together in coherence with each other. Competitive advantage, which is associated with third step of capabilities, to be potentially utilized in terms of competitive advantage. So competitive advantage is ability of a firm to create superior value for its customers. I feel that I have made the right choice in terms of the price I have paid, the association which I have developed with the product, the usage of the product at the core, basically the satisfaction which I have derived and so on. Customers would express as far as that they have derived value in these kind of things basically. Now an attractive industry, how do you define that? An industry with opportunities that can be exploited by the firm's resources and capabilities. For example, you have researched on some processes basically, those can be utilized for producing X or Y or Z, which may have 3 different industry associations. For example, similar kind of rubber processing or understanding about rubber can take you towards tire industry also and some other industry also. Understanding about the processing of wood can take you towards furniture industry also or some other associated industry also. Understanding about construction material or let us say adhesives and abrasives can take you towards different kinds of industrial domains altogether. Strategy formulation and implementation, which is associated with strategic actions taken to earn above average rate of returns, deriving best out of what you are supposed to, for what you are supposed to, and superior returns, earning of above average returns. So that is how the structure goes in resource based model of our the returns. Let us see how Netflix does that. Now, for Netflix, resources are or can be seen with the perspective of vast array of, and that is what authors they have sort of expressed, that you may visit the website of Netflix, and when they say about us or they demonstrate how do they look at their own resources, you may get to have a coherence of what we are thinking and what Netflix also acknowledges about themselves. So, they about their resources, authors talk about that their resources can be seen with the perspective of vast array of original and licensed content, excellent streaming technology and algorithms, through which they prompt you to look into different options they have, and through which they understand your mind frame also, personalizing the content for you. Capability, content creation, user experience and data analytics are the capability built by Netflix using their resources. They have created Netflix platform as an interactive platform. They keep on taking your feedback. Their algorithm keeps on monitoring your choices and keeps on presenting things in front of you in a meaningful manner, which is meaningful specifically to you, for you. Competitive advantage, diverse and compelling content library, best user experience and personalized recommendations also. In due course of time, they would have taken several patents, they would have filed for several patents or got those patents. They have several copyrights with them, wherein others are unable to imitate those kind of things. That is why user experience on Netflix is extremely different as compared to many others basically. Specifically when you look into a segment wherein they have boxes, and you just go for that box, and every box would start showing you movie trailers or clippings basically, and would start attracting you. The time you spend on particular kinds of clippings would motivate them to give you similar kinds of options. Then there are several kinds of options. We all know, we are users of Netflix basically, and very interesting is that they would keep reminding you, because you have watched this, so you can also watch this basically. They create a pattern for you with your help. That is how things are. Now, the other element is attractive industry. With internet being more common, the streaming industry have taken over and offers one of the best attractive industry for them. They started their business, I talked about Netflix in some of my earlier sessions also. They started from being a movie distribution company before they started. Now, strategy, formulation and implementation. You see, Netflix started from renting movie DVDs, as I said, but changed and implemented strategy over time to make the most out of their resources and capabilities. The strategic pathway they have chosen is to become a composite entertainment provider, generating their own software now. That is a strategic step they have chosen, taking software or movies and serials from others also, other producers also, and moving along through these strategic steps, moving along to a long strategic pathway. Superior returns. Netflix is one of the tech companies with highest market capitalization now. Let us see, it is huge. As far as number of subscriptions in millions, and that is number of Netflix paid subscribers worldwide from first quarter 2013 to fourth quarter 2023, last year, in millions, and you would realize that it has crossed 250 million subscribers, which is huge. If you will look into it, it's a part of population of this world, and they have priced it right also. So, a right kind of a pricing, a suitable kind of a pricing which is beneficial for them as well, and sort of large number of subscription on a particular kind of a pricing which may cost you 20-30 rupees a day also, 10-15 rupees a day in Indian rupees also, which is okay with the perspective of a particular kind of an income group, but definitely has a target market in front of them. They have a target market in front of them, but having structured themselves with a specific pricing, they have large number of subscription. That is my point. If they would have given for free, then definitely it would have been much larger as compared to, but how would they have maintained their business, that is another question. But having a specific business orientation with a specific price and a growth is commendable as far as strategic orientation goes. 250 million plus subscribers. Now let me take you to a case study which demonstrates what we have been talking of in terms of some of our preceding discussions in coherence with the present discussions of resource based models. So let's look into this case study, and now I have taken this name several times in my demonstrations and discussions, but let's look into this case study with the perspective of our present point of view. Paulson Dairy started in 1915 in India and started manufacturing its own brand of butter and pasteurized milk from its plant in Anand, Gujarat in 1930s. Farmers in Kaira district of Gujarat were forced to sell their milk to Paulson Dairy at a very low price due to the existing environment, that was British era, and several such kinds were happening because British government they had a very strong control on whatever India was doing at that time. So political environmental forces were overwhelming. Technology also had to be, that was largely with them, so not much could have been done. The farmers came together and protested against such exploitative practices and called on a milk strike. So that is how things were at large in due course of time, and definitely Bapu played a very large role in all such things, in augmenting those things, and rest is history. India went for a huge milk revolution. How it happened, how strategically it happened, how resources were identified, and whole of the process which we have just talked about in preceding slides was followed. Let's see. And the reference which I am using here, we have marked out is Deshpande, Rohit, Tarun Khanna, Namrata Arora and Tanya Bijlani, India's Amul, Keeping Up the Times, Harvard Business School case, then revised June 2017, Goldberg, Ray A, Karen Isabel, Noop and Srinivas Sundar, Amul and India's National Dairy Development Board, Harvard Business School case, November 1998, revised December 1998. So earlier case was revised in 2017 and this was revised in 1998. I again suggest a disclaimer here that this is not copying of the case, it is just choosing few segments from the case as areas of considerations to demonstrate about what Amul did through the author's perspective, and while collating that perspective with my understanding and my team's understanding through Amul's website and the history we know about Amul. We acknowledge the contribution of authors and we are thankful to the authors for their contribution in these case studies which we are presenting in front of you just as a food for thought. So further the cases say that government finally gave in to the demands of farmers and in 1946 allowed them to form their own cooperative. 47 India got its independence, 46 it was happening. Definitely Britishers would have realized that they would be leaving the country and that is how things would have started, and in the meanwhile India was looking forward to development at one go. Kaira Union soon flourished, processing 5,000 liters of milk a day by the end of 1948. So that union started functioning on their cooperative basis. Union registered under the name of Kaira District Cooperative Milk Producers Union Limited and later adopted the brand name Amul for its products. Historically, it started, environmental forces were there, political environment was not in favor, but then their internal forces, they came together and they converted themselves as a cooperative. That was their internal resource. They realized that they would be able to pool their resources to go for a unified cause and processing 5,000 liters of milk a day. Organization took giant leaps under the leadership of Dr. Verghese Kurian, who was appointed as a general manager in 1951. Now this was a historical step basically. You have several movies on Dr. Verghese Kurian. He wrote history in terms of white revolution in India. He was supported by several governments. His efforts have been lauded. There is an institution which Amul manages in terms of as far as this particular segment goes, and several management programs are being run by that institution successfully. Many great authors and thinkers have worked with that institution, have been produced by that institution. So that kind of a perspective, we may gain when we realize that historically these kind of organizations, they have contributed a lot in the development of this country as far as their own domains go. So, after moving to a cooperative, Amul started doing exceedingly well, as authors and the cases say, and it is also there in the movies as well as several kinds of publications done on Amul. You see, these organizations are talked about by several institutions and authors and thinkers, and you have several videos and movies on them. So, definitely lot of overlap between as far as information and data about these organizations go, because they are intensely the part of as far as our discussions go. Everyone discusses them. Harvard Business School is discussing about them. So does Indian management institutions. They discuss about these kind of organizations and so on. They started collecting over 20,000 liters of milk daily, surpassing Bombay Milk Scheme's demand. To accommodate this, they expanded their facility and started producing milk powder. Now you see, they chose a process based augmentation in the process of as far as milk processing goes, and started converting Amul into the milk powder, dairy whitener, they say that. Many organizations say that. Then butter, ghee, sweetened condensed milk, baby food and cheese. Because now the processed milk or milk in its original form was largely not required. So, they focused upon the strategic steps in association with infusion of processes in the whole situation. Strategy formulated by Amul, primarily by the vision of Dr. Verghese Kurian, started redefining the structure and the environment around them. Now, that is how they started infusing operations at different levels. They started putting up machinery also, and structure was getting evolved, and business environment was continuously being looked at, and they would have augmented their retail processes also. They would have introduced different kinds of measures to introduce such kind of products also. They would have advertised, they do advertise about that. Utterly Butterly Delicious is one of the most successful campaigns they or anyone would have gone for that matter. And then how they would have utilized powdered milk, that was a pivotal kind of a turning point, as Indian consumers would have used powdered milk for their tea and so on. You see, the point is that they would have gone for research and development, market understanding, advertising, positioning the products and so on, and would have augmented several kinds of strategic steps which would have been required for such kind of a strategy infusion. Anand pioneered a cooperative model known as Anand pattern cooperative system. Now, they were augmenting their whole of the structure as well. This system is a union of primary village dairy cooperatives that consists of a 3-tier structure that comprises village cooperative societies, district level dairy unions and state level federations. A complete cooperative structure got evolved along with the organizational structure which we have talked about. And you see, by this, what they are trying to do is, they are trying to internalize an external element as their internal element actually. They were a large cooperative basically. Now, many independent cooperatives would have been taken or can be taken as external elements, but then they are internalizing those as internal elements at large. The strategy implemented in Amul started creating promising structures and garnered the reputation that it was a place where something different was happening in the dairy industry. Definitely. Now, you have started putting up different kinds of products and product lines, and you are reaching to the hearts of people, and your usage is increasing. Amul procured, processed and delivered high quality milk and milk products to distant markets in cost effective manner. Now, again, you see, cost and differentiation which we talked about earlier. This in turn gained better income for the farmers and helped in lifting their standard of living. So, whole of the value chain was getting prosperous and opulent. All this was done without any special government assistance, which was in contrast to what was happening to government sponsored dairy programs happening in the other parts of the country, as the authors say. But in this case also, although they were a cooperative, they were not asking for much of the support, but government was supportive anyhow. And government was giving a conducive environment to Amul as well, which we will realize. The then Prime Minister Shri Lal Bahadur Shastri ji visited Amul personally and I know a very senior professor, a marketing professor, who was telling me the narrative of how when Lal Bahadur Shastri ji was going to meet farmers associated with Amul or cooperative partners of Amul, what were the preparations were those were done, how that support was garnered from Shastri ji, and how Dr. Kurian actually projected Amul as one of the key proponents of white revolution in India. So, Lal Bahadur Shastri ji, who was then Prime Minister of India, visited Anand in 1965 and was impressed by Amul and its operations. They presented it nicely in front of him. They explained how they have developed themselves. He then directed Dr. Kurian to replicate the same at the national level. One thing which I was personally told by one of very senior professors was that Dr. Kurian actually motivated Lal Bahadur Shastri ji to stay in one of the villages for whole of the night, to eat and drink with the farmers, as far as food and local beverages which they offered, and the hospitality he accepted from the farmers. He discussed many things with them late at night, sitting with them in their place, and that was the kind of interest which Shastri ji showed and Amul generated from his side. This resulted in setting up of National Dairy Development Board, and Dr. Kurian was assigned as its chairman. This was now going for developing a complete industry out of an organization, and that is how we would realize in due course of time that organizational life cycle is associated with industry life cycle, which I would be discussing with you, and how these actually affect each other in due course of time. This is a unique example which is associated with such kind of a thing, as far as the whole situation goes. NDDB soon launched Operation Flood, which aimed at creating milk cooperatives across several Indian states, which worked to connect rural dairy farmers with urban consumers in cities like New Delhi, Kolkata, Mumbai and Chennai. Operation Flood became a massive success despite some initial resistance. Definitely, every process has resistance, so authors have talked about that, but I would not be mentioning categorically what kind of resistance this whole process met. It proved to be successful from economic, agricultural and social perspectives. Annual income of the farmers rose dramatically, as the authors say, which helped in lifting up the livelihood of many poverty-stricken families. And villages that benefited from Operation Flood were said to have added milk roads, areas where the streets are cleaner, kids are fed better and better houses are built. This phenomena hence became known as White Revolution, which I have been continuously mentioning in front of you. The White Revolution shaped the environment by uplifting the conditions of the dairy farmers and increasing milk production in the nation. Whole of the value chain is moving towards prosperity and opulence, which in turn helped in feeding a growing nation with nutrient rich milk. The Institute of Rural Management Anand, IRMA, as I said, IRMA was also established after the success of White Revolution. IRMA was instituted as a training institute for leaders and innovators in rural society. You see, this case study and several other case studies like these, they demonstrate the perspective which we have been nurturing up till now. I would be adding on to this discussion with an industrial organization perspective with another case study associated with that in my next segment. Till then, goodbye.